You know what I just noticed while I was sitting here talking to you?
Your watch tan?
This horrific watch tan. Oh my god.
Out in the sun for a while on that baseball game?
It was a football game, but yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think this is like 4 solid months of tanning.
Gotcha.
Because I don't know, they're waterproof now, so I go swimming.
Yeah.
I just wear the watch. And normally I'm wearing it when I'm on camera, but it didn't charge last night, and so it's charging right now. And I'm just looking at this pasty part of my arm.
It's funny.
It's pretty gross. Is this what my skin looked like before summer? Hello and welcome to Flanagan's Wake, a Doof Media podcast watching, analyzing, and discussing the collective works of Mike Flanagan. My name is Scott Daly, and I am your host, and joining me as always, tensely waiting for something bad to happen, it's Matt Freeman. How's it going, Matt?
Somebody's going to pants me. I just know it.
That's it? That's the whole thing?
That's what I'm afraid of.
I feel like you should just get that over with and just do it yourself.
Yeah, but then it won't. No, it has to happen spontaneously and in a terrible context for it to matter.
Is there a context in which being pantsed is not terrible?
I mean, there could be like comedically pants. You're just messing around, you know?
I don't know about that.
We've all been pantsed in good fun. Talking about a real aggressive and, ill-meaning pantsing.
Please continue your thought. Please get out of this cul-de-sac you've ran yourself into.
Why don't you segue us out of here, Scott? What are we talking about this week?
This week on the show, we sadly, for us, maybe not for our listeners, reach the end of our time with Henry James as we cover the final 2 short stories that are referenced in Mike Flanagan's Bly Manor episode titles. Those short stories are The Romancing of Certain Old Clothes and The Beast in the Jungle. Just one of those moments of happenstance that I certainly didn't plan. It could not possibly be planned, but we have managed to pick 2 stories that are written at near the beginning of Henry James's career, and then the second one of the ones pretty late in his career, not the end, but pretty late in his career. So there's like a gap of almost 40 years between these 2 short stories, which I think makes for a really interesting point of comparison between the 2. And I wish I could take credit for doing that intentionally. But I did not. It's just how it worked out. It's how the page counts worked out. And also, I mean, maybe you could give Flanagan credit for this, because this is just the final 2 names of the final 2 episodes of The Haunting of Bly Manor. So maybe he did it.
Yeah, maybe he did. I mean, in any case, it's going to give us a great opportunity to talk about the evolution of his style, his focus, the themes that he's interested in.
Yes.
Which are really, I think, evident in these 2 stories.
I agree. And full disclosure, The Romancing of Certain Old Clothes was the first time in this entire project of Henry James in these short stories that I went, oh, I remember that. So we've been doing this thing where we decided to read these short stories without being necessarily confident that just because the episodes had the title names that they had anything to do with any content that happens in any of these stories. I can definitively say that there were parts of The Romancing of Certain Old Clothes that felt familiar to me, and not because I've read the story, but because I've seen this show. So that one will come into play later in this story. The rest of them couldn't tell you, don't remember. But this was the first and only time I went, oh hey, yeah, I remember where this is going.
So that's cool.
Fun.
And I haven't seen it, but just I think that might be like a segue, because the one remarkable sort of thing about this story is it's probably the single most like overtly supernatural and straightforwardly like horror story
Yes.
that we've read up to this point. I mean, I'm trying to think. The closest second would be The Way It Came, where people see a ghost for a second.
Yeah.
And that's it. And maybe it wasn't a ghost. Maybe nothing happened at
I
all.
think there's a hard way to get out of this particular story without saying that there was definitively a ghost, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this one, it seems like there's very little way. Okay, I mean, I guess they're okay. If we're gonna be really like pedantic, like, yeah, I guess she could have like clawed her own face off with her own nails out of guilt or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just think that's kind of a lift given the story. It's like it's way more parsimonious to just be like it's a ghost story. The ghost of the sister got revenge.
It is a ghost story, and this is the one, The Romancing of Certain Old Clothes, the one that was written very early in Henry James' career. The story was originally published in 1868 in Atlantic Monthly, and I think it really shows too. And I don't mean that as like a criticism of the story, but it is interesting to me that we have gone back in time almost 40 years and found a story that is much easier to read and digest than I think any Henry James we've read so far. Maybe you don't disagree with that, but I just found the writing just quite simple to parse.
Okay.
And like there was I had none of the difficulties that I had in some of the 20th century James stories. In fact, the one we're going to be talking about today, I had none of the difficulties there. This is just a pretty simple, straightforwardly told ghost story.
I agree. I mean, it does have things in common with his typical themes of interest, like the pressures that society puts upon people and how that causes them to suffer, especially women.
Mm-hmm.
There have been a lot of stories that have been basically about courtships that went awry for one reason or another due to some misunderstanding, usually due to some sort of like tragic inevitability that is not strictly anyone's fault.
Yeah.
I think he's fond of that, right? He doesn't. Another way of saying that is that his stories very rarely have villains. I'm failing to think of a single straightforward villain in any of his stories.
I think that would be fair. Yeah.
Yeah, except
I
possibly.
I guess it depends on some of your interpretations of some of them.
Yeah, the ambiguity leaves that up to us, but yeah, I think that's still not a villain in the strict sense.
Yeah. So, to quickly summarize it, The Romancing of Certain Old Clothes tells the story of two sisters, Rosalind and Perdita, who fall in love with the same man. When Perdita is chosen by the man, Rosalind barely manages to contain her jealousy, but she manages to not act on her feelings. After Perdita births a child and is dying, she senses that her sister will eventually move on and marry her husband, Arthur. She makes him promise to lock up all her fancy clothing in the attic and deliver them to their daughter when she comes of age, and only their daughter, preventing Rosalind from getting any of it. Rosalind does indeed eventually end up marrying Arthur, which is kind of weird, but the former insists on following his late wife's promise, and eventually, as they suffer an economic downturn and have to start selling all their stuff and become destitute, she loses all the fanciness she has, and she increasingly demands to get this beautiful wardrobe and clothing and knickknacks that are locked up, going to waste in the attic. She pushes her husband so hard, he eventually gives up, throws her the key. She goes up in the attic and opens the chest and pays for it. The ghost of her sister, we are led to believe, slices her face up, killing her. And that is our simple little neat, pretty short ghost story. I think this is like, we cover two stories today, but I think the vast majority of like the page count covered in this week's episode is taken up by The Beast in the Jungle. This is a relatively short story. What'd you think of it, Matt?
I mean, I enjoyed it. Like you said, it's very simply written. The sentences are much shorter and more linear. It fits into a kind of template that we expect. It's not that it's not that there's nothing fresh and original about it, because it really is. like I think everything that he writes, it's really about, people, and then the supernatural is kind of the grace note.
Yeah.
And the envy between these two sisters, where it's all very tragic, right? I think that's what affected me the most, is that you've got these two sisters who really do get along. Them and their mom, they're a nice little unit, and then
Mhm.
this man comes along, and like they're aware that like this man is going to come between us, and then whoever he doesn't choose is gonna feel really bad about it. But the story even tells us like both of them fully intend on gracefully accepting, not being the one chosen,
Yeah.
because they know it could equally well be either of them. But they don't quite have the power to not have that jealousy. And then the one that is chosen feels a sort of it's funny that I don't know, there's like a word for this in English, but it's like they feel a resentment at the other's jealousy. Resentment's not
Yeah.
quite the right word, but you know what I mean, where it's like, why can't you be more graceful about this?
Yeah.
Because they themselves feel kind of guilty for being the one who was picked, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very complex and subtle, and that's what I love, and all of that boils over because even after the first sister dies, essentially dies in childbirth, um, the second sister is then picked, but she's aware that she was second place. And
Yeah.
so even though she's now in the position she wanted to be in, she's still not happy. So anyway, I know I just dragged all that out, but like that's the substance of the story actually, and it was really I felt really effective actually.
I agree. I really did like this one. I think its simplicity is its strength in a lot of ways. That like it is easy to digest, easy to understand, and it allows the complicated nature of these two women and their relationship to really shine through because everything else is allowed to be backgrounded. Like for example, like the character of Arthur, like he exists in the story and we get like a cursory definition of like who he is, but ultimately like he's not the driving force of the story really, ironically, since he is the one that drives the story by picking. But it that almost doesn't matter, like who he is and what he wants, and like the explanation for why he picked one sister over the other is never provided. He just did.
Hmm.
And that's fine. The focus the whole time is on these two girls and their relationship with each other, and everything else is kind of secondary. And I love what you said about like the ways in which, like you say, there's no villains in these stories, and it's so true because like Rosalind like could very easily in some context be seen as a villain. Like she's covetous of what her sister has. She like becomes over time kind of warped by this to where as she loses stuff in her life, she's more and more covetous of the material things that she both her and her sister attached great importance to, and her desire for that eventually destroys her. But the clothes are a symbol, right?
Yeah.
Like we could say this is about materialism, and I think that's a fair read, but I ultimately think like what she wants is to have been picked first. And
Right.
she wants to inhabit those clothes. She wants to inhabit that life. She wants that as much as possible. And the fact that it's out there locked away in a box, it's like, yeah, you got him, sister, but you will always remember I got him first, because the memory of that, the depiction of that is locked away in a chest.
Yeah.
And eventually I will hand that down to my daughter, and they will be constant reminders to you that this is all the things he graced with his first wife. And even as our economic downturn goes, he has to keep this stuff. He's required to.
Yeah, I think on the metaphorical level, you could say what kills her is the realization that having these clothes will bring her no closer to, being the one who was picked first, having what her sister actually had, and she will
Mhm.
always feel this jealousy and resentment,
Yeah.
um, which is, again, very sad. What you said about her being, villainous, I think is interesting because as the story goes on, you start to kind of dislike her more and more.
Yeah.
But that happens in a way that's very organic. Like she starts out as just like she's like a kid basically. I mean, they're very young at the start of the story,
Hmm.
and they react very understandably, but she just kind of becomes increasingly bitter, and and I guess I just see that as being sad rather than like, oh, look at how, she's an evil monster, she deserves this. I don't think
Yeah.
we're meant to feel like she deserves it at all, actually.
I think it is really interesting that like the way in which her and Arthur ultimately end up getting together, I think is a really interesting kind of kernel of the story, right? Because there's a read of this that like her sister dies and she kind of is like, all right, how can I like play the slow game here, right?
Hmm.
Of like, I'm just gonna like be around for a while.
Yeah.
Um and my being around will eventually endear this man to me. And like I don't even know like if this is textual, because like one thing that happens is she kind of becomes a caretaker for her niece, and her
Hmm.
niece like falls in love with her, and her niece basically demands, you need to live with us. um and like there's part of me that's like, that's like totally legitimate though. She
Hmm.
loves her niece, she cares for her niece. Her niece lost her mother, and
Hmm.
she needs someone in her life to perform those roles for her. And Rosalind was happy to do that. But another part of me is like, or she's just playing the long game, and she sees this as a way in, and it works. It
Yeah.
works.
I also picked up on that, and it's funny, I don't know how much of this I'm projecting, but I feel like it's this sort of yes, both things situation where, does she have in the back of her mind, like, I'm going to kind of slow roll seduce this guy? I think this is definitely a thought that crosses her mind. However, like, is it her primary motivation? I don't think so. I mean, I think like her niece just needs a caretaker. She's like
Yeah.
a baby, and um and there's all these legitimate reasons to be doing these things. And like, I think that at some point it even says like her mother was kind of scandalized by her behavior, but she always had the excuse of it just being the pragmatic thing to do.
Yeah.
um and then it ends up working out for her. And I think, we kind of joked about it a second ago, but I don't think it was that unusual back in those times, because everybody died all the time, right? Everybody died when they were 20. So I don't think it was that unusual to like marry your brother's widow or your sister's widower, just
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, what else are you gonna do? There's not nobody else is coming along. They're dead. Let's just make the best out
It's
of
so
this.
hard to meet people when you have to ride a horse 20 miles
Yeah.
just to see them. Yeah. No, I think you're right. And one thing we didn't state was that the story, written in 1860, definitely takes place even further back in time than that, right?
Yeah.
The kind of uh, scaffolding on the story is that this is where they're relaying us a story they heard from many, many years ago.
Hmm.
So I think even more the case back then. Yeah, I don't think there's anything we're supposed to feel particularly scandalous about marrying your sister's widower.
Right.
Like I don't think that's. I think it's more. It's less the act of doing that and more the levels of envy and jealousy that persist between the two of them. That like, which is really sad. Like it is this really interesting. Like there's part of me that looks at Henry James as this guy who we talked about this in the first episode. Confirmed bachelor, lifelong bachelor, never married, never was in any relationship. There's all kinds of speculation on if he was gay or not. Um, we'll never know, so there's no sense talking about that with any declarative statement. But he writes a lot of stories about people not getting together, or if he writes stories about people getting together, those things don't go well. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it is really interesting. A person essentially seeming to write these kind of relationships from the outside looking in. And so a
Yeah.
man who is a confirmed lifelong bachelor, watching as these type of relationships can take two sisters who were extremely close, like loved each other, had this immense love for each other, and watch as this man walks in the picture and kind of systematically destroys them, to where at the end of the story the ghost of one murders the other for a slight against her, for her envy, for her greed, for her jealousy, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my read on this man who has been dead for 100 years is like he is one of the too pure for this world, bright children of his own stories, where he's very sensitive. That's how he's able to pin these things to the page. Is he sees these other people don't see these things happening around them, or if they do see them, they're not affected by them.
Sure.
But he sees these things happening all around him, and he's affected by them, and it's very painful. It's very painful to be that kind of person. I mean, I think a lot of children start out with that kind of sensitivity, and they kind of grow hardened as they get older because it's literally too painful to be open to everyone else's pain all the time. And that's what it strikes me as. And so, like, him being a lifelong bachelor, it's like, yeah, I think he just always was very easily wounded and very easily picking up on subtextual things that other people maybe would just like either not notice or just sort of like plow over because it doesn't like he's too I mean, I hate to say it, but like he's neurotic. Like it's the kind of person who writes this kind of story. It's like that's just the clinical description for it. But it enables him to write these really perceptive stories that we love. So none of that was meant to be like a harsh criticism of Henry James or his writing. I'm just saying like that's my interpretation of why he writes these stories and also why he lived the life that he lived. These two things are tied together, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think every writer, in a certain extent, is examining and trying to understand the world that they inhabit through their stories. So, seeing a guy that constantly writes about stuff like this is definitely him, like searching for what does this mean? What does it all mean? I think one of the most fascinating things about this story, and I don't know if we're quite ready to transition to the next one yet, but like I like the story a lot, and I think if this guy continued to write just like this, he probably would have been a relatively successful author. I do not think he would have been a person that you and I are sitting down 100 years later doing a podcast on. And it is a really interesting and fascinating examination to me, comparing this story to The Beast in the Jungle, which is our next story, a novella written in 1903. And that has gone fully into the Henry James style that we know and love, of the long sentences, the long paragraphs, the many commas, the kind of confusing, not spoken way he relays information, and all the things that we've been talking about over the last few weeks, I think are everywhere in The Beast in the Jungle. And like, just like having these two stories side by side, comparing them, I read both on an airplane on my way to Philadelphia this weekend. And so like I read them back to back too. Like there was no stopping between. I went right from one to the other and read it through to completion on the plane. To me, it was absolutely transparent to see like the style that this man adopted and late in his life, even if it was challenging, even if it turns a lot of people off to his story. I think this is ultimately what made him great. And like, it was the thing that I could not help but take away from The Romancing of Certain Old Clothes is like, hey man, this is like a good story. Good job. But like, you're not going to be great, and your greatness is still to come. And I think that's really fascinating to me.
Yeah. Are we going to go ahead and segue to this next story?
It's up to you. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to specifically talk about in The Romancing of Certain Old Clothes.
Not really. I mean, I think what I had in my mind right now was really kind of a bit of a compare contrast exercise, but that kind of requires talking about the second story. So
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No. So do you want me to summarize it real quick? I'm doing these summaries for the sake of people that I know are not reading the stories, but wanting to listen to the conversations.
I think it'd be good to summarize it before I launch into comparing them, because otherwise people are going to be, I'm going to say stuff that makes no sense. So
sure. So The Beast in the Jungle, as you said, is a 1903 novella published in a collection called The Better Sort. It tells the story of a man named John Marcher who bumps into a woman, Mabe Batram, who he met 10 years ago in Italy. He does not remember this encounter, but she tells him that she knows the big secret of his life, which is that John is absolutely convinced that his life is going to be defined by some impending catastrophic disaster that is out there just waiting for him, like the titular beast in the jungle. May is obviously smitten with John and agrees to basically spend her life with him, just collectively waiting and looking out for this beast to eventually attack John. They grow old, May grows sick, and right before she dies, she reveals that the beast has pounced, and John doesn't even realize it. And the greatest tragedy is that John cannot understand it and will not understand it until it's too late. And of course, the story ends with John, as it is too late, eventually understanding what this great catastrophic calamity of his life was, is that he wasted it worrying about what this great catastrophic calamity will eventually be. He wasted his life with a wonderful woman who he was cordial and friendly with, but never truly close, because he's kind of a neurotic mess that really can't get close to anyone.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the greatest tragedy of his life was simply that he wasted his life.
Yep.
I love the story. It is like catapulted near the top of Henry James for me, if not just up there. I found this incredibly moving and fascinating and a kind of a joy to read, even if, like with many of his other stories, I definitely struggled at parts of it to follow these long page-long paragraphs of this character of John, like really soul-searching and trying to figure out what's going on with him, even as he's missing it completely.
Yeah. So, so first of all, I love that you just said neurotic there, because it makes me realize like that's why that concept was at the tip of my brain when it comes to Henry James, because if this is a sort of late in life autobiographical, in some sense autobiographical story about, oh man, I just realized I wasted my life. Like that's what this character is he's super self-obsessed, neurotic, to the point of not even noticing that there's this woman in his life who basically tells him to his face in their first reunion that she loves him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just never notices this because he would be played by Woody Allen. Okay. So the other thing is talking about like finding it harder to read. So in my case, this time the hardness to read came less from the sentences and more from the like lengthy winding digressions into internality, where nothing quote unquote happens for like several pages as this character is ruminating. I mean, it's kind of narrated, but it's also kind of close third person, so it's just like we're surfing the contours of all of his neurotic spirals and ruminations, and which is a fantastic style in which to write a story that has this subject matter. Actually, like it fits because it's like, it gets you in the same very like heady, and by that I mean like in your own head sort of space. Like one thing I noticed is I would do the thing where I would realize my mind was wandering and I had like not internalized anything that happened for the last 3 pages, but it wasn't wandering because I was uninterested. It was wandering because he had like sparked some tangent in my mind that I just went off on, right? And so it was actually like, oh, it's not actually that I'm bored of this. It's that it's affecting me so much that I'm like distracted by the thoughts that he's inciting in me, which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the real gifts of this story and how his style lends itself to his story. Because I think there's an argument to be made that sometimes when we get the style that he's made, like maybe even in the turn of the screw, it might get in the way of what the story is trying to do. I think the genius of this story is that it is part and parcel with what the story is trying to do, which is kind of pull a fast one on you, the reader. I mean, you and I were talking right before we recorded, and I don't think you kind of fell into the trap of the story like I did, but this character is so selfish and self-absorbed. He is so always talking about himself and this thing that's going to happen to him and how it makes him feel and how he lives his life. And I think it's funny, he also like constantly like checks himself, am I being too selfish? Nah, I'm good. And it's like, no man, you just trust me, you are. But you kind of at least I did eventually fall into the trap of the story where I kind of get sucked into his world in a way, and I think May did as well. Get sucked into his world and this concept, because I think one of the things the story has for it, and I've been thinking a lot about like what is it about like The Pupil, which is a story that not only do people generally seem to really like, but I think a lot of our listeners are calling it one of their favorites. And so I've been thinking a lot about what is it about that story that didn't quite work as well on me as compared to some of these other ones. I think this story has a really fun hook in it that is just like, what is it that's going to happen to this guy? Are we going to get to see eventually if a thing happens to this guy? And that's a really great hook that pulls you through the story. And despite the fact that there are like multiple warning signs and bits and pieces about throughout the story that like nothing's going to happen and that's going to be the point, I found myself kind of sucked into his world. And these, like you're talking about, these long diatribes where he's like neurotically inspecting his life and what's going to happen, and thinking about these things in this ridiculous Henry Jamesian way that make it so like, man, dude, get over yourself kind of way. But I was kind of sucked in still and was like, yeah, like what is good? Like I was really turning pages waiting for when the thing was going to happen.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where like I was right with John when May says it's happened already and you'll never know. And I was like, what does she mean? Like, what could she possibly mean? It can't be her death. Like I was so with him. It's like, it can't be her death because that hasn't happened yet. And it's like in the back of my mind, I think I knew. I knew what clearly is going on and has been going on the entire time. But like, I think the story through John really tries to dissuade you of that and trick you away from it through a selfishness of him just being like, no, it can't be just her dying. It can't be that, because it just like, I think my favorite moment in the story is when he reaches a point where he basically decides that I've spent so much of my life thinking about this thing that if it's not like a huge, massive thing, I will feel terrible about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a hint in and of itself, right? Of what the story is doing. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, no, totally, man. It better be something huge. You're going to be fucking pissed. So, I mean, I think one of the reasons I love the story is it just worked on me in I think the exact way that perhaps Henry James wanted it to. And like in conclusion of this whole diatribe of mine, maybe Henry Jamesian diatribe of mine, I think the way he writes, the way he constructs sentences, the way he constructs paragraphs just lended to that ability. It was part of it. The style and the story met perfectly in the middle.
I very much agree. Like he wrote this one, he leaned into it on this one because that's the perspective of this character. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
said that like more succinctly than I did.
you've just internalized the Henry James. No, you're good. No, and then for my part, I mean, I think what I had on the brain was your observation recently, maybe the last time we talked, maybe even before that, where it's like, man, this guy really likes to write about older men who have some beautiful younger woman who are just obviously in love with the man, but he's totally oblivious to it, and often ends the story still oblivious to it. And I had that on my mind as I was going into this story. And the first thing that happens is he meets this. It's exactly the same situation. Older man meets, not scandalously, but somewhat younger woman, and she obviously remembers him from the first time they met, and he doesn't, which tells you
he has no memory of her whatsoever.
Well, which is perfect in retrospect, actually, because what that's telling us is this all happened before. He met this girl. She was into him. He was completely self-absorbed and oblivious and just talked about himself the whole time, is what happened. And then she remembered this for years, and they met again, and she remembered everything about it because she loves him. And he continues to be, and he's like, "Oh, you're obsessed with me. I'm obsessed with me too. That's great."
Yeah.
And
we have something in common. Yeah.
and that's so I had that very like firmly in my mind, like, okay, she obviously like wants to be with him and spend her life with him, and she's great, and he just always wants to talk about himself. And I don't, I think I didn't like 100% put it all together in terms of like what is the mechanics of how this is going to execute, but I think I got. But like the point of me saying isn't like, oh, I got it, and so Henry James did a bad job. It's like, no, I the ending still affected me, I think, just as much as it affected you, even though I basically saw coming the idea that like what the horrible thing that happened to him is that he wasted his life.
Yeah.
Like, and it specifically manifested as he had the opportunity for love and for actual human connection, and he was too obsessed on this narrative, this self narrative, this fatalism, for him to actually engage with it, which is something I think is a bit relatable. Like that's why I think both of
definitely.
I think everybody has their own version of this. I definitely you know am the protagonist of my own novel that I am living, right? I think we all, especially readers like us and like our listeners,
Yeah.
I know that we all suffer from protagonist syndrome a bit, and that's natural, but I like, this is a great story that kind of pokes at that and points out like, hey, not that there's anything wrong with being the protagonist of your own story, but you have to acknowledge the other characters in your story as being people.
Yeah. And people worthy of love, and there is like, there's part of me that just I have to look at this semi-autobiographically, right? Like, we just talked about Henry James and his lifelong bachelordom, and in 1903 he was an older gentleman. I think he was 10 years from death, and maybe he's starting to look back on his life and go, oh, I fucked up. I fucked up. Like because I mean, like I think it is broadly true that this is a story about a man learning that the great tragedy of his life was wasting it. But specifically what the story is arguing that is that he had love, and he did not, he did not notice it. He did not embrace it. He did not bond. He did not love her in a way that she loved him, because one of the specific things about the way the story ends, and I find kind of so hauntingly beautiful and tragic, is he's looking at this whole thing and he's like, oh my God, what have I done? And like, there's a part of you that like the whole time is watching him kind of pull her into this egoist world of his own making, where it's just all about him. And you're going, she's wasting her life too. Like, this is awful. Like, he's ruining his life and he's ruining her life. And then what the ending of the book argues is that, like, okay, yeah, but at least like she loved someone full-throatedly and passionately. She loved this person, and she chose every day to spend her life and to commit her life to this person because she loved him. And that is how she escapes the greatest part of this tragedy. But he failed to do that. He did not. So this is specific to love, and it's because the thing that triggers him, the thing that allows him to kind of come to this shocking realization, is this beautiful image of an old man visiting the grave of his dead loved one and seeing the genuine grief and destroyed person that a man who has lost his love like looks like.
Yeah.
And this passion of emotion that John Marcher has never in his life felt, and the story argues never will.
Yeah.
He's missed it. It's over.
Right.
And yeah, it's hard for me to read that and go, Henry, did you you having some regrets, my man?
Right. For sure. I mean, where else does an idea like that come from? Yeah. I just like to emphasize what you're saying. Like, it's not even that he suddenly feels the loss of his great love. It's literally the loss is for his own life, and he continues to be self-absorbed.
Yeah.
Like, even in the end, he's mourning his own wasted life, not her death.
Yeah.
And it's actually not being loved, but feeling love for someone else that is the thing that he's missing. I just wanted to reiterate that because you drew that out, and I don't know that I thought it in exactly that sort of logical sequence there.
Yeah, because a lot of people, especially when you're young, like we were once upon a time, like the thing you feel that you want most is to be loved, right?
Mhm.
Like that's like, it's like if you are an insecure young person trying to get a relationship, it's like, I want to experience the feeling of someone like loving me, and that will make me feel better about myself. But that's not it, right? Like he was
Right.
loved. Like this woman loved him every day of her life, essentially. Like the true joy of this is experiencing what it feels like to be in love. And I think pointedly, the book also argues that will end in tragedy. That will end in a certain kind of tragedy. Because there we watch this old man truly mourning his lost love, and it's like that like I think that's the great irony of this story, is that like every single life is going to be defined by some impending catastrophic disaster out there, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's the loss of, like, death happens to
Yeah.
everyone, whether it's your own loss of your life or the loss of, like that's all of us.
Yeah.
And you can't live constantly thinking about that thing.
I think that's a thought that kind of flittered through my mind toward the beginning, but didn't really take purchase. Was like, if the beast in the jungle is the idea that everyone is the idea that he's afraid that there's some doom that's going to befall him. I'm like, yeah, everyone has a beast in the jungle.
Yeah.
That's and at the time I read, I almost, it was like dissonant to me. I was like, what's the point? What's he? I don't. But then it's like, yeah, that's the point of the story. Is
Yeah.
like you just said, like the mistake is to live your life where you're just totally obsessing about the beast in the jungle and not just living your life. And then the beast is going to get you for sure. But it was going to get you either way, whether or not you were obsessing about it. So
Yeah. It's so sad. This is beautifully written and so sad.
mhm.
Like you just think about May and you think how early maybe May kind of figured out what was happening here,
Yeah,
and just felt like, I can't like explain this to him because he won't understand or listen to my explanation. This is something he has to figure out for himself, but won't. At least not until it's too late. And she's like dying, like that last moment of her like standing up and basically being like, "This is your last shot. Like
yeah,
embrace me, love me.
yeah.
This is it." And just having to watch this man just not get it.
Right. Like just emphasizing like she stood before him, incredibly beautiful and looking like she had the day that they met,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "What?"
What, you said something happened to me?
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing fell on me.
Yeah.
What
I
do you
didn't.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just to like criticize this fictional character for a second, though, like she. Do you think? Um, I don't mean that like I wish the story were different. I mean like in a sort of like real life sense. Don't you think it would be better in this sort of situation to be like, hey man, look, it's obvious that you're not into me and I'm really into you, so I'm just going to tell you that. And if that has no effect on you, which I expect it will not, then I probably need to go and just like move on with my life, because and the reason I say this is like she has been waiting around for him to figure this out, um and he's not going to. He's not going to. And her sort of insistence that he figure it out like on his own is her own doom, like I'm not communicating very clearly here. All I'm trying to say is like I think it would have been better in a practical sense for her if she had just said it, and it would have been, he probably wouldn't have understood. He probably would have even been insulted, actually.
Yeah.
But like, wouldn't that be better for both of them than her just like living out the rest of her life and then dying, and then him realizing the same thing that he would have realized? Regardless, he probably wouldn't have realized it if she had told him, because he would have been resistant to it. But the point is, at least
Yeah.
she wouldn't have been trapped by it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is once again in his perspective that we see this idea that, hey, she at least she lived, she lived with passion. She loved me her whole life. So like, I'm the fucked one. She is fine. And I think that's again coming from his warped perspective of like, I totally agree with you. Like, I think this woman fucked up. Like, I think
Yeah.
there's something romantic about a love that burns throughout your life, even if it's never once reciprocated. There's something like uh, novelistically romantic about that concept, but like practically it's like, what are you doing, woman? Like, go find someone who will love you the way you love them. Don't waste your life on this man. And I mean, the implication at the end is that like, and again, this is him selfishly making himself responsible for everything, that like, I think it says, I have it written here, um uh like the idea that it sprung, um that cold April, when pale, ill, wasted, but all beautiful, and perhaps even then recoverable, she had risen from her chair to stand before him and let him imaginably guess. So like, he creates the situation in which she's dying, and it's like, if I had just told her I loved her at that moment, she wouldn't have died, right? Which is this, again, completely self-absorbed, this is all about me, me, me. Her dying has nothing to do with her, it has everything to do with me. um so yeah, I mean, I think there is part of this that like is not easily wrapped up as a like, she was fine, he fucked up,
Mhm.
she did it right, he did it wrong.
Yeah.
I think there is some she did it wrong too, um but
But
like, that's the
and
tragedy of it all, is
yeah.
like, why did you hit yourself to this guy? That's
Yeah, just like
love, that's love, baby.
exactly. Just like the previous story we discussed, it's tragic because it's human and understandable. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think like the romantic notion of like pining for someone is extremely captivating and like um compelling, especially when you don't feel like you have any other options,
Yeah.
which I think I get the sense that she doesn't. I mean, I think that's why like literature about people pining was so popular in the like extremely repressed sort of Victorian-ish times,
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, well, there's not really a lot of like uh dating happening. So we're kind of limited to just pining,
Yeah.
and then, maybe our parents talk to each other and arrange a marriage or something. Um
Yeah. And just the idea, again, talking to how often James writes about women who live in this world that essentially grants them no agency or rights or anything, and how they have to try to navigate this world. Like, it would be improper for her to be like, hey, I love you, let's get married.
uh-huh.
Like, she's kind of forced to kind of wait for him to dictate the terms of that kind of thing. And so like, again, maybe even at the end, she really hadn't given up on him and his ability to kind of see this for what it is.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
he just
I
doesn't.
I mean, I think you're right. I think like her standing there in the room was her sort of attempt to psychically communicate to him like, look, I'm right here, just
Yeah,
show
but
me that you care. Yeah.
to your point, like,
um
why couldn't she just say that? Like, that is her fatal flaw of
yeah.
like, she hitches herself to this guy, at some point has figured out what he has not figured out, and yet refuses to reveal the information to him. um I mean, I think the argument she makes is that you won't and can't understand it, which I mean is fair, but like, I don't know, give him a shot.
Yeah. Right.
um
There's also a kind of like, if maybe I'm being unfair to her even, but like, if I have to explain it to you, then what's the point? Because
right,
like, you
right.
don't really you didn't have an epiphany and realize that you loved me. What happened was I pointed out to you that you're a selfish bastard,
Hmm.
and then maybe if we're lucky, you go do some soul searching, and decide that you love me, but that's not the same thing, and that's not what she wants.
Yeah.
And I can't even really fault her for that, honestly. So all she has is the hope that he has a spontaneous Ebenezer Scrooge-esque character change, which doesn't happen. So.
Yeah, it's the old I don't want you to do the dishes. I want you to do the dishes.
Yeah,
that's the old thing. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
That's actually like the fracture between the sexes right there.
I do love like how much his selfishness permeates everything though, because like I don't know if one of the things that jumped out at me is she's dead, she's died, right?
Mhm.
And he spends about 3 pages like complaining about her family and how her family won't let him be at like the funeral activities.
Yeah,
and it's like they like, who the fuck are you, man? Like, we're her family. Right. You're just this guy that like hung out with her.
There's basically 2 options. One of which is like, who is this guy? And then the other option is like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah, it's that fucking guy
who she wasted her life with and is still oblivious.
Yeah. And that's what he's mad about. He's mad about how he's being excluded from those festivities and not allowed to go to the funeral, not allowed to be there. Doesn't feel welcome with these people, even though I think he comes right out and says, I was the most important person to her or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's very,
very,
just incredible. Right. This fucking guy. I mean, like, yeah, it's like, it's just so brilliantly written. Like the opening thing is so like it almost opens on kind of a meet cute, but a meet cute that perfectly establishes the bounds of this relationship, because it's like, yeah, like they're in this, I don't even remember what the name of it is, but they're in this like extravagant mansion, and being toured through it, and they kind of bump into each other and they do that like across the room. Hey, haven't I? Don't you? And then they eventually like find a way to like talk semi-privately to each other. And he's like, I think I remember you. And she's like, yeah, I remember everything about you. And he's like, oh yeah, me too. That we met in France, right? And she's like, no.
Italy. Yeah, right.
And he's wrong about every single detail of their meeting. And he's not even really like, I don't know how the story does this so expertly, but it basically says that he was just going to go on his way. And like, yeah, this was a fun little conversation with this woman and I was going to leave, but then she told me she knew my secret. And it's like, suddenly he goes, whoop. And he's like suddenly super interested in her. Cause it's like, oh, I at one point liked this woman enough to tell her my secret, which I've never told any human okay. I don't believe for a single solitary second that this man has not told anyone his secret. Like, I just think this is like the only person that like stuck around or cared enough to remember it.
That's interesting. The thought didn't cross my mind, but I feel like you're right.
I mean, the argument is that he told her because he had some sort of great spiritual bond with her, right? This is another Henry James thing, right? There is this kind of intangible link and connection between people that can form sometimes. So I think that's the argument for him only telling her, is that even if he was too stupid and selfish to realize it, they had some sort of ineffable connection that he felt like he had to reveal this deep held secret of his. But I don't know, this is the way it just feels like how self-absorbed and into his own shit this guy is. It just seems like I just have a hard time believing that like the first time someone asks him like, hey, why are you like a little neurotic? He wouldn't be, well, let me tell you, something bad's gonna happen. What do you mean? When? Where? I don't know. I just really feel it.
Yeah,
why?
I mean,
I just do.
You ever like at a party and you're like talking to somebody and you realize after talking to them for like 10 minutes that they know nothing about you and you know a lot about them?
Yeah.
Like it's a fairly typical sort of type of, and he's that guy, right?
Yeah.
And he probably has told 17 people this thing about himself. And because like it doesn't matter to them. They just like, okay. Or they're thinking like, God, this guy's annoying.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's like, it's like when you, like, I could just see, you see a person and you're like, hey, man, how's it going? And their response is, not good. Just like, I didn't actually.
Yeah, I don't care.
I didn't actually want to know. I was just being polite. Yeah, and then he goes like, I don't know. This is all extra textual, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
in the book that actually says that any of this happened. But he just comes off as so like aloof and separated, but also like so self-absorbed that, and it's like, I don't know, like James does such a good job of capturing, like, not only is he selfish and self-absorbed, but like the self-importance like permeates the writing of like, not only does this guy think something bad is going to happen to him, but he thinks it's like different and more important and worse than like any suffering that any person has ever experienced in the world. Like it's such, I was thinking a lot about the Altar of the Dead, because one of the lines in the Altar of the Dead that I think we read was this idea that like the character in that book like hadn't suffered any loss worse than any other person, but maybe like took the loss more personally than other people. But not this guy. This guy would say, no, like this is the worst, the thing that's going to happen to me, that by the way I don't know what it is and have no sense of why or where or when or anything, but it's going to be the worst thing that's ever happened to a human being ever. And I think the great irony of the story is maybe he's kind of right. Ultimately, it's like I mean, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like,
Yeah. Well,
that's what it is. But
yeah, I mean, right. I mean, like we're all our own universe, right? We can only feel our own suffering. So there's like a not entirely vacuous sense in which like the worst thing that happens to you is the worst thing that has ever happened, because you cannot possibly compare it against anything else, because all you have is your own suffering, right? So I'm not.
Well, but well-regulated and balanced people recognize the inherent flaw in that, and
right,
do not allow them to completely warp their understanding of the world.
Or you just try to have some like dignity and proportion about things, yeah, and just, I mean, you grow out of it. I mean, like a child who skins their knee, it's the worst imaginable thing, and then you realize that lots of people skin their knees, and then you realize, hey, this actually this isn't so bad, right? Yeah, and he never grows out of that.
Yeah. I don't know. I really loved this one. I found it funny and tragic, and I was along for the ride the entire time. I wonder, like, if you asked Henry James, like, I think not that your and I's like experience reading this story was like super different, but like, would he say, "I know I was trying to hoodwink you and get you pulled into his world," or would he say, "I wanted you to kind of watch this from a distance as this man systematically destroys his life and realize it the whole time"?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, a lot is one of those ones where I'm really glad we talked about it, and I feel like it has become a lot clearer to me, in fact, the longer we've talked about it. And part of that is, it's not like he's writing this character as a joke. Like there's a version of this story you can imagine where it's like comically obvious that this guy is meant to be the punchline, right? That he is ridiculous. I mean, I made the Woody Allen comment earlier, but like you can just like turn that knob up all the way and just make it self-parody.
Yeah.
Then it would be really obvious the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we're supposed to think of this guy as a neurotic mess, and it would just read differently, right? But he didn't do that. I feel like he very carefully keeps you in the pocket of like this guy's genuine perspective. This is the way this guy perceives this situation, and these are the things he's thinking about, which I think makes it actually a bit more resonant than if it were just a joke. And we're supposed to laugh at him, because we've been doing plenty of laughing at him in this conversation, but also there's we're laughing because it's relatable fundamentally.
Yeah.
Like, and that's good comedy is like I'm laughing at that buffoon because I am that buffoon.
Yeah.
And there's some release of tension knowing like, oh, I'm not the only one who is neurotically self-obsessed sometimes. I recognize that.
Yeah, I mean, removing this just from the idea of love specifically, it is certainly true that like we get wound up in our own lives,
Yeah.
and for lack of a non-cliche phrase, don't stop and smell the roses. Don't stop and appreciate the moments and the things in our lives that matter. Like you and I were talking right before we started about how when you're like doing the same thing every week, when your schedule is roughly the same, the weeks move by very, very quickly. They just seem to whiz on by, and it is very easy to get so self-centered in that your life just kind of passes you by, and a lot of people live that way, and it is there it is almost always not until it is too late that people stop and go, wait, oh no, I should have, I didn't, I won't. um it is this great tragedy of people that, yeah, like we all suffer from main character syndrome. We all care most about ourselves, and then like our circle of care always has us at the center of it.
Yeah.
Like
I
even if we like I like let's I love my children, I love my wife, like those are the most important people in my life to me, right? But like I'd be lying to myself if I said I'm not in the very center of that circle, right?
yeah, I mean
I think that's just not an accurate portrayal.
it's just simple. Like you are your own universe. Like you can't
Hmm.
like you can honestly say you would give up your life for your kids, but
And I think I
you,
would, yeah.
but you aren't them. Like
Right.
so it's just different. Yeah. Um, yeah, I was thinking about, you said that a second ago. I'm just still processing something you said a minute ago about how like it's actually your love of others that sort of makes your life worth living, not their love of you. And
Hmm.
and then you mentioned kids, so I'm just thinking like, yeah, like this story kind of frames it as like the love between a man and a woman, but it becomes even more obvious when you have kids because your love for your kids is like totally independent of their love for you.
Yeah.
Like yes, they love you. Um, but that's got nothing to do with you loving them. It's like your
Yeah.
love, like your love for your kids is this, bonfire that can't like they can be awful to you, and it has no effect on your love for them, right?
Yeah.
You can even be mad at them and not love them any less, right? And that's like that's the amazing thing about loving someone, compared with the almost the little bit of happiness you feel when you realize that somebody loves you. That's like, oh, that's nice. It's nice when somebody loves you, but it's not even comparable with the feeling of loving someone else. That's a cool. I never quite thought about it that way, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I mean that you're kind of, I'm spiraling now thinking about this, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, um it is like there's so many unique different types of love. We're talking about love here, I think, because the book itself was talking about a specific kind of love, but there's so many different kinds of love,
yeah,
and I do agree that love of a child is unique in that regard.
yeah. Right.
Like why can't I remember what I'm blanking on a phrase right now.
Hmm.
Like what is the type of love called where um it doesn't matter, you will always love a person no matter what? Why can't I remember that phrase, Matt? What?
Unconditional.
Unconditional. Thank you. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Just let's just cut all this out so I don't look like an idiot. Um yeah, I think it is romantic to look at like your romantic partner and say like I love you unconditionally. And I've always looked at that with a little bit of jaded skepticism of like, I don't know, I feel like there are some conditions
Yeah.
here. Like I love my wife very much. I feel like there are some conditions to our love. Um like I don't, you like horrifically cheat on me with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I think that love's going to change and fade and possibly go away. But like a love for a child, I think is unconditional, right?
Yeah.
I think that is one of the rare true forms of unconditional love.
I think so. And again, independent of whether they love you, right?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
which is, it's just funny. I never like put that together that way, but it really, it's the doing the loving that is like spiritually meaningful.
Yeah. And that is, I think,
Um,
why this story like resonates so well, because like you could expand it out. You could say this story specifically is about experiencing this kind of romantic, um, lifelong partnership type of love. But yeah, there's like the same person could say, "Oh no, I fucked up. I should have had kids. It would have completed me." I'm not saying that is true for all people. Please, I'm not saying that, but like for some people certainly. And for other people, maybe it's just like the love of not doing what you always wanted to do, getting swept up in what you felt like you needed to do, and not ever stopping to do what you loved. Right? I mean, I think there's all
mhm.
different kinds of love, and
Yeah.
and love is just this kind of powerful thing that can mean so many different things, but is the most important thing in our lives
Yeah.
in many ways.
So I want to jump on that because it seems really important to talk about if we're going to run with this idea that this is a semi-autobiographical story, which
Yeah.
is not our original thought, but makes some degree of sense. You have to look at it and say, but but you're Henry James. You're a beloved artist. You
Yeah.
created all these amazing works of art that people appreciate and have made a difference. Surely that doesn't feel like you have done nothing, you have meant nothing, you have been a passing ripple on the surface of the world that hasn't mattered. And maybe he does that feel that way, which is really a sad thought, because like you said, like you can love your art, right? You can love your work.
Yeah.
I hope that someone like Henry James was able to love their work at least and not actually feel this way. That would be very sad. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it is this weird thing of you are your own worst critic sometime, and then like there's a there's a fun metaphor to construct of this whole thing of this is a story of a relationship between an artist and a creator, or a creator and their audience, essentially, where May takes on the form of the fan, the appreciator, the constant reader, if you will,
mhm.
to put it in a different context, and the John character is the creator themselves, and um them kind of like going through the motions. There's this person that like isn't so in love with them and recognizes their genius and their greatness, but they can never see it for themselves until it's too late. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think that was the intended. I don't think that was. I don't think like Henry James sat down to craft the metaphor to say that specific thing. But I think there's something there about that, because I mean, like, it is absolutely true. The more I spend time really diving into the people that have made some of my favorite things in the world, my favorite pieces of art. Even our namesake for this show, Mike Flanagan, has spoken extensively about his own self-doubt, his own uncertainty. Like, we talked when he was writing Hill House, like he was kind of that was a incredibly difficult process for him, where he was filled with this uncertainty, this self-doubt, these incredibly overpowering emotions of, this is shit, I'm not doing this right, I'm not gonna be able to finish this, I'm not gonna do this justice. Like, these ideas that, like, from the outside looking in, look ridiculous, look absolutely ridiculous. Like, we see the finished product and we go, no, this thing was awesome, and you've got it, man. Whatever it is, you've got it, and I have utmost faith that you're going to be able to execute on that. But like, that's what it is to create. That's what it is to make stuff, is that like, you never will see it the way other people see it. You will always see it your way first. And maybe even this kind of uncharitably, like, self-centered, egotistical um view of yourself, uh that you cannot see from the other way. I think we've gone very far away from the intent of this original story, but this is why I think this story, like, rises up to become one of the greats, because it leads to all these, like, arcing thoughts
Yeah.
in me.
Yeah, to zoom out even more though, like I feel like that's what often happens with these Henry James stories, where the narrative is like a romantic misunderstanding, and then it triggers this like incredible deep soul searching conversation,
Yeah.
because all of that is implied by like, well, don't we all kind of relate to this, and like, isn't he exactly nailing the universal thing that is at the core of this, and how it's not really about the romantic misunderstanding, it's about like the nature of what it is to be a person and the pain that comes with just the necessities of existence. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's what happens. Like I think kind of the same thing happens with the pupil, where it's like it's almost boring on a narrative level, but then you're just like, God, what a what a complicatedly relatable tragedy on all sides.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of keep the more you keep pulling on it, the more richness you get out of it, which I think is really like the core of good art and good literature.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things you said about Stephen King many times as we worked through The Dark Tower was that like this guy just kind of gets human psychology, right? Like
Mhm.
he just has tapped into something that is just specifically into the way our minds work, the way we deal with stuff, the way we process stuff, and he's able to take that and put it into stories. And I think that is just something that all the great authors, writers, creators, artists, whatever you want to call it, have access to. And I think
Mhm.
absolutely, quibbles with his beat to beat, moment to moment sentence construction and prose aside, I think Henry James had that in spades, and it is no surprise to me that like he's one of the people we're still talking about 100 and something years later.
Yep.
So I think as we kind of come to land this plane, like we've read 8 short stories, and the novella The Turn of the Screw, which by the way, some people get like really bent out of shape online about like the literal definitions of like novel novella. I saw this whole thread that someone was like super mad that people were calling Stephen King's The Long Walk a novella, which it's not. Like it's a novel. Like that was a 300 and something page book. Like, but a lot of reviews of the Long Walk movie were saying based on Stephen King's novella, and like I just saw some people that got like super mad about that. I think we need to let that go.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the explanation for this is that it showed up in the collected Bachman works, and that
yeah,
made people think, oh, that it must be a shorter one.
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
actually not. It's
No,
just,
it's not.
yeah,
But also, who cares? It
yeah,
just doesn't
right.
matter. But so we've read 9 stories essentially over the past 5 weeks. Um, I think we enjoyed them all. Like I think I said during the pupil episode that was probably my least favorite. I think that might still be true, but even so, like least favorite of a list of like things that I just really deeply treasure, and that is what I'm leaving this experience with, Matt. Like I said multiple times throughout it, I don't know if I'm gonna like become a Henry James obsessive from here on out, and like I have these big volumes right here of everything he's ever written. um I don't know if I'm going to like read these things cover to cover now, but I'm so thankful for my time with the stories that we have here. Like even if the only ones that matter to the Haunting of Bly Manor are the Turn of the Screw and maybe a little bit of the Romance of Certain Old Clothes, um, I'm so glad we did this. I think
Yeah.
this was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I will say there are moments during all these stories where I kind of roll my eyes at his style.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
and it's just funny to me that like that's true, and yet I agree with everything you just said. Like I love all these stories. I think we had really good conversations about them. I might go so far as to say if we didn't have the excuse of having these conversations, I probably wouldn't have gotten nearly as much out of them because they're so difficult to like penetrate. It,
Yep.
like I don't, you know, I think it was necessary for us to talk about them for me to really like actually love them,
Yeah.
which is typical for me. But
Yeah.
um,
It's my favorite thing about doing this project with you is this idea of coming into something with a certain thing I think, a certain thing I want to talk about related to something, and exiting it with maybe not an entirely new, but just a new perspective, a new idea, a deeper appreciation for it. It's what I love about these conversations. Figuring something out or unlocking something or going through something or realizing something in the middle of it. Like
Yeah.
the Beast in the Jungle conversation went a place that I had no plans to take it. And I don't think you did either,
No.
but that's just what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you, and I acknowledge it's like, and then I'm gonna go, because one of the ones I think I am actually thinking about reading is The Portrait of a Lady, because that is like, outside of The Turn of the Screw, like his most famous novel.
Mm.
And so it's like, maybe I say I like this guy, maybe I should read like his most famous novel. So I might do that, but I do completely agree with you that without the requirement and the and the structure of doing it for this specific show, maybe it just won't work as well on
Yeah.
it. I don't know.
I highly recommend to people that they talk about the things that they've read with other people who've read those things, because
Yes.
it's difficult for me to even say that I have fully processed a book until I've talked about it.
Yeah.
But
There needs to be more book clubs, and I think we need to get away from this book clubs are just for women thing. I like it. I have so many times in the city of Dallas, like, tried to find a book club of just like, hey, let's just have a group of people that meet and talk about books, and it's like all women constantly. And I was like, it's not like, I'm not saying this like I can't do that because there are only women there. It's like a women only thing. Like, men
Mhm.
do not have book clubs, and I find that weird.
Yeah.
Also, if you live in Dallas, let's start a film club. I want to do that.
It would be good. I think our artist is a genius and everything is intentional is, I don't want to say like a prerequisite of a functional book club, but like I think a really good idea, because, well, this is what tends to happen when you discuss art with most people most of the time, is it very quickly becomes, oh, I didn't like this, and I hated this,
Sure.
and I didn't like that character, and then you're just like, okay, I did, or like there's just not a conversation. That's not a conversation, I guess. Is
Yeah.
whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Sometimes I don't like things. I'm not saying I like everything. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it makes for a more enriching conversation when you have the doof motto.
I agree. It's the best thing we've ever done.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. What is your favorite of these stories?
Do we have a list somewhere? Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
we
in
do.
if you want to open the schedule, it's in there.
Yeah, one
but
sec.
I can also copy and paste it for you real quick.
I can find it in 2 seconds. All right. Let me just think for 1 second.
Now you can tell what is in the script, folks, and what I just decide to do at the very last minute. I think this is a hard question, so I don't blame you. Like,
Yeah.
I've changed my mind like 6 times.
Yeah, there's basically like
weeks.
it's basically like 3 that are kind of jockeying for first place. And if I had to pick one of them, which I'm going to do, I would say The Way It Came.
Okay.
And I think I can justify that. But before I do you have a clear favorite?
I mean, I still really like The Jolly Corner. I was still really affected by that one, and like, maybe recency bias, I really also like The Beast in the Jungle. I also enjoy The Way It Came. I think that the biggest surprise for me is how not at the top of the list The Turn of the Screw is, which I think we had like tons of great things to say about that story when we read it, and I think that all remains true, and I like it a lot. But I just think like my emotional reaction to the stuff Henry James is doing, like, when I think about the stories, I think about The Way It Came. I think about The Beast in the Jungle. I think about The Jolly Corner. I think about The Altar of the Dead even.
Yeah.
I just, The Turn of the Screw comes up on that list closer to the bottom.
Yeah, The Altar of the Dead was on my short list. Um, I think the way it came has the benefit of both having that like subtlety and internality, as well as just being one of his more digestible, straightforward stories.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so it kind of has everything that he's good at in one package. And I like it. Another way of putting it is like that would be the one that I would recommend to people, because it's just like, yeah, this is kind of it's entertaining and fun, and then it's also got that kind of deeper layer to it.
That's a fun thought. Yeah. I think I agree with that because, like, as much as I just said the Jolly Corner and the Beast in the Jungle, like my two favorites, could I, in good conscience, recommend, like, heard about this guy Henry James? Go read the Jolly Corner and then tell me how much you love Henry James.
Yeah,
I can guess what your reaction to that's going to be. So yeah, I think you're right. I think the way it came is it. Do you think the turn of the screw? It was kind of our entrance into it. Do you think that was ultimately like a good entrance into the world of Henry James?
I think it's a really good story. I think the it's so it feels so much more like a gothic horror story and less like a sort of extremely subtle short story kind of exploration kind of thing. I had
Sure.
I had a similar thought to what you just asked. I was like, what would we have thought if we had simply read The Turn of the Screw at the end
Yeah,
instead of
which
at
I
the
thought
beginning?
about doing, by the way. I went back and forth on that.
I mean, it's impossible to know, right? But I do wonder if like I would have been primed more for the undercurrent of like, okay, Henry James is really good at exploring these like extremely subtle character things, and he's really good at getting us inside of the head of a character who's maybe
Yeah.
not being completely honest with themselves, etc. And I would have been more paying more attention to those levels of the story, which I think we discerned either way, but
hmm
maybe I didn't discern some of those things until we were talking about it after the fact.
Yeah.
So
I think that's fair. Are you more or less convinced of your interpretation of the turn of the screw after reading all these short stories?
that being that there were no ghosts,
Correct.
I
Yeah.
think I'm more convinced that there were no ghosts. Yes.
Yeah. I am the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I wonder if I read only the turn of the screw and the romance of certain old clothes, if I would be more or less convinced that there's ghosts or not. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that there's no ghosts in any of these stories at all, um, including the clothes. It could just
I
she could have just ripped off her own face, but
I mean,
um,
I guess that's pretty
I mean,
brutal,
again,
man.
I also find it like death of the author and everything, but it does feel like what he intended with that story. But I just think it's funny that even his most ghosty of ghost stories don't really like have a material ghost that's actually real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, this will be a fun thing we can wrap the episode up on. Looking forward to the next 9-10 episodes, which will be our exploration and examination of Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Bly Manor. What are you expecting based on what we've been through the past 5 weeks? Like kind of the themes, the focal points. Um, we talked after I think we read The Turn of the Screw that it fit pretty nicely in with Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, at least as a backdrop to make a story that is similar to an adaptation of The Haunting of Hill House.
Mm-hmm.
Like what are the big things you probably be looking out for as we move into this story?
So, bearing in mind that I really know nothing about this TV
Yes,
show,
that's
yeah,
what makes this question fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking like we're gonna have some male characters who are very self-absorbed and oblivious to the interests of the women in their lives. We're gonna have
Mhm.
women who are disempowered, um, and perhaps acting desperately out of that disempowerment, like
Mhm.
um, a lot of social, romantic, familial misunderstandings leading to tragedy. And if there are ghosts, it is never going to be quite clear whether those ghosts are real.
So I will say there was an ambiguity of the realness of ghosts in The Haunting of Hill House, but not in
Okay.
Mike Flanagan's adaptation. Not saying whether you're right or wrong either way, but
Okay.
ultimately Mike Flanagan is definitely telling horror stories in these worlds. And I think I will say that Bly Manor is a loose adaptation of The Turn of the Screw in the same way that Hill House was a loose adaptation of that novel. Although I think one thing we experienced going through that after reading the book was, while it is certainly a loose adaptation in that it creates new characters, it hewed a lot closer to the book than I was anticipating. So I do not have as strong of a memory of The Haunting of Bly Manor. I said this at the beginning, as I did Hill House. I had watched Hill House multiple times before getting to this project. I've only watched Bly Manor the one time when it came out. I remember liking it, but for whatever reason, my memories of it have faded, like John's memories of May when they met 10 years ago in Italy. I have loose gatherings of memories of the characters and what their roles in the story are, and kind of the overall arc of it, but not as clear and concise as I did Hill House. So this is going to be a fun experiment for me as well.
Yeah. Back when you watched it in France. Just one thing. I don't know if this thought is tickling me, is that if May had married John, then she would have been May Marcher. And I'm just like, that's such a great name.
You blew it, John.
Yeah, right. Like it's just I'm just imagining James sitting there being like, I'm going to give her a name where obviously her name's supposed to be May Marcher, but she never gets to be May Marcher. Yeah,
that's great. I love that. All right, well, that is going to do it for Mr. Henry James. What a fun series. I really enjoyed that. But next week, we begin The Haunting of Bly Manor with the very first episode titled, and I think you're going to recognize this, Matt, The Great Good Place.
Doesn't ring a bell.
No, shit. I fucked up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to dive into the series again. I'm excited to explore it with you, and I'm excited to be back in the world of TV again. I love this. So,
change of pace, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right. That is going to do it for us this week. But before we go, we do have some discussion question stuff to do. Matt, what was the last question we asked people?
Last week it was, who is your favorite child of light from...
This is based on the pupil. The pupa.
Pupil, yeah. And many other Henry James.
Sure.
Yeah. Baby Can You Dig Your Sam says, I have to go with Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle. Dewey is calm, introspective, and comports himself with the dignity that no one else on the show demonstrates. He is, at best, ignored by his brothers and, at worst, bullied. Early on, he often lives in a fantasy world, but as he matures, he seems to have a better grasp on reality than any of them. He is as smart, if not smarter, than Malcolm, but still manages to fly under the radar. He is even put into a special needs class and then becomes a leader and champion for their rights. Not to mention that Dewey is just plain hysterical. My favorite part of the show after Lois's exasperation and Hal's man-child antics. Yes.
Man, Malcolm in the Middle was great.
Yeah, it was a really good formula. I agree. Like, all the characters were very clearly drawn, relative to what you expect from that sort of show. Although I guess there were a lot of good comedies. There were a lot of good family comedies in that era. So yeah. But I agree. Yeah, great character.
That one was unique and just it really was pushing the envelope in a way that I was not expecting when I first sat down to watch it. I have a very, very distinct memory in that show of Lois, the mother, answering the door topless. And of course, they didn't show anything because this is network television. But I was just like, whoa. Oh, it's that kind of show. Okay.
Yeah. I think I may have laughed harder at some particular scene of Bryan Cranston doing physical comedy than I've ever laughed at anything that was on TV, which is why it was so shocking years later when it was like, what? He's the serious dramatic actor?
Yeah. Kids today will not understand why it was so insane seeing Bryan Cranston in that role after watching him for years on being this zany, goofy slapstick comedian on Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like our version of that is Batman, because like Keaton to us was Batman, right? We saw Michael Keaton as Batman, but to everyone else, Michael Keaton was this comedian, this funny comedian, and it's like that just happens sometimes.
It's a good point.
Yeah. All right, we have only one Tassin who says, I'm not reading along with y'all. Instead, I'm following along the way that I got through much of high school English classes, just listening to discussions and gleaning the important stuff. Well, I hope you're ready for the test. I think you'll pass, actually. I definitely did that in high school as well. With the Count of Monte Cristo. Ace the test.
Yeah, I think at least once I was like, I think I can pick this up.
Yeah. My favorite is hard to quantify, but a recent favorite child of light is Octavia E. Butler's Aiken from the second book in Lilith's Brood Xenon Genesis series, Adulthood Rights. He's a great outsider on the inside, as he is the first human male born and emerging of human and alien DNA. He can understand the struggle of the alien race to trade with and save humans from themselves, and because he looks mostly human and has alien abilities of perception, he learns of the human strife to remain pure of the alien influence. Since I haven't read the next book, I'm curious to know if he follows the child of light tropes and is, quote, too pure for this world and perishes tragically, or if he becomes a hero of his chosen people, or if he becomes corrupted and turns cruel. But in his childhood, he is a learner, an empath, and strives to be a metaphorical bridge and to do the right things for all his people. That sounds interesting. I have to admit, Matt, one of the big holes in my reading is Octavia Butler. I have not read a single thing she's written.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like she's been on the book club shortlist a few times, but
we put her up for the vote and she's never won. I've tried with Parable of the Sower. I've tried with Wild Seed. Tried a few other things, and she's just never quite gotten over the hump. But
I've never read any Octavia Butler either, so
I feel like I need to.
Maybe we'll fix that sometime in the next few months.
Yeah, we should.
All right, Pear Jane says, great episode. I've also not been reading along with you, but as always, I've enjoyed listening to your conversations. She says, in the exquisite Disney cartoon, and especially in Dakota Fanning's portrayal of in Maleficent, Princess Aurora, aka Sleeping Beauty, is the ultimate child of light. That was Dakota Fanning? Anyway, she is kind, charming, and carries with her an innocence that typifies the classic child of light trope. These children are often seen as somehow untouched by the world. Despite evidence to the contrary, they still believe in the world's goodness, and they make the world brighter simply by being in it. In the case of Sleeping Beauty, she succumbs only temporarily, but the entire kingdom is brought down with her. She's too good for the world, but the world also cannot go on without her. Kiss of true love aside, it's an important comment on how the rest of us normal folk need beacons of light to go on. Speaking of which, I'm writing this the day after Jane Goodall died at age 91, and she was a reminder that in the real world, children of light can sometimes live to a ripe age and continue to inspire the world for decades.
Well said.
Yeah. Beautiful thought.
Jane Goodall's death really made me sad. I do have to say though, Jody, unfortunately, Elle Fanning is Aurora in Maleficent, not
Thank
Dakota
God.
Fanning.
I thought I was going insane.
Well, it's her sister, man, and they look very similar.
But I know the difference. I'm like, I'm so sure that wasn't Dakota Fanning. All right,
close enough, one Fanning was another. Yeah. Nell 811 says, first, the Albuquerque isotopes mentioned. That is a comment on my Mets rant in the cold open of the show from a couple weeks ago. Update: they blew it. They totally blew it. Didn't even make the playoffs. I hate it.
Of course, you knew that though.
Yeah, so, I did. I saw it happening. Second, my favorite example of a child of light in fiction is Matilda Wormwood from Roald Dahl's children's book and wonderful 90s film. Matilda is not just intellectually bright, she's able to write her name when she's just an infant, but magically bright due to her telekinesis. Despite experiencing terrible cruelty, first from her family and later her school principal, she is exceptionally kind, empathetic, and uses her abilities to stand up for others. Seeing Matilda use reading and learning to escape her circumstances and build relationships with others never fails to move me. Great answer. I think that's a perfect example of the concept.
Yeah, actually, I think Roald Dahl probably has what could be considered a number of Child of Light characters. That's
for sure.
great.
For sure.
And finally, Busy Dad 82 says, we can be sad baseball fans together. Pads or out.
Do you know what team that's referring to, Matt? Pop quiz.
The Paddington.
That would be the San Diego Padres. I'll let you off the hook there. Yeah.
Cool. I knew that. Okay, and then the answer goes, he is a child with knowledge beyond his years, forced to grow up early, raised by a troubled single mother who faces her own demons. He alone is the key to the future. A stranger comes into his life, becomes a father figure, and teaches him the meaning of friendship and sacrifice. I'm speaking, of course, of John Connor. He can hotwire cars, steal from the ATM, reload weapons, and drive a bitchin' moped like an ex-gamer. The tragedy of John Connor is that although he has a parental figure who is truly protective of the future of the future general he will someday be, he doesn't have someone who will parent the child he is now, or then in 1991.
Well said.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Tries to order him not to go, but he says,
God,
he has to do it.
Stop it. Stop it.
There's one chip left.
Stop it. I can't do this.
I know,
right
yeah.
now.
Episode's over. Oh yeah, sorry. There were two more shorties. Sugar Shillelagh says, Tommy from Challenger's 9 Stories with a hilarious aside about hating Catcher in the Rye. Specifically, Challenger being a whole-assed cat vomit at 3 a.m. of a person.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but now I'm going to go read that whole comment in full. And Scarlet Claret says, Ponyo from Studio Ghibli as a literal force of nature who makes everyone around her better people.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, what is our question for 2 weeks' time? I believe we'll be on episode 2 of Bly Manor by this point. So what we're going to be talking about.
All right. The question will be, what's your favorite work of art that demonstrates an artist's growth over a period of time? So, obviously the inspiration is this episode. We talked about 2 stories that spanned, 40 years, you said?
Essentially, yeah.
We could really see the change in the artist over those years. And I think that's almost certainly true for many directors, many novelists, even painters, stuff like that. So hit us with your favorite example of that growth or change or what have you.
I love it. Can't wait to see what y'all say. All right, that is going to do it for us this week. As we said, next week we begin Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Bly Manor, episode 1, The Great Good Place. Is it just going to be a cool little vacation spot in the mind, or what is it going to be? I don't know.
It's going to be so relaxing, but it's still going to cost money. Remember, you can reach us via email at flanaganswakepod@gmail.com, over on X at flanaganswake19, and on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/doofmedia. There's a great place to answer the discussion questions, catch up on what's winning over on the doofmovies.com leaderboard. You may be surprised. I'm not going to tell you. Go check. Go check the website.
Great job, Matt.
Yeah,
really great job. Also, please head on over to doofmedia.myshopify.com to get some merchandise. Get your Mike Flanagan Says Hi t-shirt that shows the wonderful, horrible, mutilated hand that is the signature of all Mike Flanagan's works. It's a great shirt. We love it. get it. doofmedia.myshopify.com. There's tons of stuff there. Don't forget, the Halloween sale is still going on for, I think, the next week or so. I don't know. Time is weird because we're still in the very beginning of October and in the now of recording this, but we'll be closer to the end of October into the now of you listening to this.
Yeah. And by the time I blink my eyes, it will be 2 weeks from now, because that's how time works now.
Yep.
Please head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/doofmedia and check out the bonus perks we got over there, like voting on doofmovies.com or listening to our huge backlog of bonus podcasts talking about Stephen King adaptations, talking about the TV show From, of which we released an episode recently.
I think there should be a new one out by the time they're listening to this as well, possibly.
Right. Yes, that's what I meant. Sometime relative to when you are recently. Yes. It's
so hard, man. I don't know. We got to be more professionals about time, but how can we possibly?
It's pointless.
If you cannot afford to join us on Patreon, of course, we will always understand that. We ask that you help us out other ways. One of the ways is to leave us rating and reviews. And Matt, I am happy to say that we do indeed have a new review to read today. It is from DoofFan 2025, but here's what the title of the review is. Love this podcast, but I got worried. I got worried a little bit, even though it has 5 stars on it. But don't worry. Here we go.
Okay.
This podcast is the highlight of my week, but my wife and I are really struggling with the Henry James stories. Please don't let that stop you from listening. You don't have to read the stories, although being a completist, I have read my way through Kingslingers and the show. Yeah. At the end of the day, at the end of the show, this month of Henry James is going to be a blip in everything we've covered. I think it's a great, important, wonderful blip, but we also understand that everyone comes to different stuff for different reasons. And if you just like the TV stuff, well, you're in for a treat.
Yeah.
We got a lot of TV coming up.
This is kind of like eating your vegetables, where, I feel good that we did it, but also I'm kind of going to be happy to get back to the carbs and fats.
I'm going to tell Mike Flanagan you call the show Carbs and Fats.
It's a delicious, fully nutritious meal.
It's healthy.
I was joking.
It's good for you.
It's a healthy, well-rounded meal. I was obviously joking. I don't mean that your show is carbs and fats, Mike Flanagan. I'm sorry.
But rest in peace. Fuck. Yeah, folks, that's gonna do it for the show this week. I can't wait to get into Bly Manor. We'll see you next week.